In just 27 days, a massive upheaval is set to rock the world of millions of Social Security recipients, leaving them in utter shock and scrambling for answers about their financial security. Could this be the start of another historic crisis that flips everything upside down? If you're relying on retirement payouts, disability support, survivor aid, spousal allowances, supplemental income assistance, veterans compensations, railroad pensions, or any form of limited fixed earnings, this looming event demands your immediate attention because it could disrupt daily life in ways you never imagined, sparking widespread anxiety across the nation. Before we unpack all the critical facts, make sure you smash that subscribe button to never miss these vital updates that could safeguard your future, and leave a comment down below sharing your biggest worry or question so we can address what matters most to you. Your input shapes what comes next. Now, diving right in, picture this. Back in October and early November of last year, the entire country was gripped by the longest federal closure ever recorded, a grueling 43-day ordeal that left countless people on edge, struggling with delayed services and mounting fears over essential supports. And if you were among those affected, you likely recall the frustration all too vividly as agencies ground to a halt and uncertainty reigned supreme. Lawmakers eventually stepped in with a temporary fix, reopening operations, but only extending funding through January 30th of this year, which means we're now staring down the barrel of another potential federal halt starting as early as January 31st, unless swift action is taken in the coming weeks. This isn't some distant hypothetical, it's a press-in reality fueled by the fact that since mid-November, when that short-term bill passed, Congress has largely been on recess, enjoying holidays and breaks, while little progress has been made on the comprehensive funding needed to carry the government through the fiscal year ending September 30th. With sessions resuming soon, they've got a towering stack of priorities, including passing the remaining appropriations bills. But based on recent reports and the lack of bipartisan breakthroughs, the odds of slipping into another shutdown appear alarmingly elevated, potentially rivaling or even surpassing the previous record in duration if gridlock persists. To grasp the full scope, consider how this impacts every corner of beneficiary life, from those drawing standard retirement checks to individuals on Social Security disability insurance, where medical reviews and appeals might face backups, to families leaning on survivor benefits to keep the household afloat amid loss, and even spousal claims that provide crucial supplements for partners. Then there's supplemental security income for the most vulnerable low-income groups, veterans affairs payments that honor service with health care and financial aid, and railroad retirement annuities tied to decades of labor and transportation. All these streams could encounter indirect ripples like office closures or processing delays, though core disbursements are safeguarded as mandatory expenditures that continue uninterrupted during lapses. Don't forget food assistance programs, which hit hard last time. But here's a silver lining drawn straight from the November legislation. That continuing resolution, known as H.R. 5371, or the Continuing Appropriations and Extensions Act of 2026, locked in full-year funding for key areas, including the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, ensuring that, unlike the chaos in November, when snaps in benefits left many hungry and desperate, this round won't trigger interruptions in food stamps even if the shutdown drags into February or beyond, covering the program through September and sparing recipients the nightmare of wondering how to afford their next meal. This protection stems from strategic allocations in the minibus bill that bundled agriculture, military construction, veterans affairs, and legislative branch funding for the entire fiscal year, while extending others temporarily, and it also renewed various expiring authorities and prevented further workforce firings until the deadline, offering a buffer against the worst-case scenarios that plagued the prior event. Yet, while this shields vital nutrition aid, other sectors aren't so fortunate. Think national parks shuttering,
airport lines ballooning due to understaffed security, tax refund delays during filing season, and even environmental protections stalling as agencies like the EPA pause non-essential operations, all of which compound stress for those on fixed incomes already stretched thin by inflation and rising costs. Looking deeper into the politics, the shutdown saga traces back to partisan clashes, with Democrats pushing for expansions in healthcare subsidies and immigration reforms, while Republicans advocate for stricter spending controls and border security measures, leading to stalled negotiations that echo the October standoff, where Senate filibusters and House votes repeatedly failed until a compromise emerged. But now, with President Trump signing off on the November deal amid threats of vetoes and demands for policy wins, the White House's shutdown clock ticks ominously, criticizing opposition tactics and highlighting how such closures disproportionately burden everyday Americans rather than the elite in Washington. Historical context amplifies the concern. The 2018-2019 shutdown lasted 35 days over wall funding, but last year's 43-day record shattered that, costing the economy billions in lost productivity, back pay for furloughed workers, and eroded public trust.
And if we hit another in late January, it could exacerbate those wounds, especially as the nation recovers from economic turbulence, with estimates suggesting each week of closure shaves off significant GDP growth and disrupts supply chains. For beneficiaries, this means potential holdups in new applications for benefits, hearings for disability claims that already face backlogs, or updates to personal records at Social Security offices, which might operate with skeleton crews or close entirely for non-emergency functions, forcing reliance on online portals that can overload during high demand. On a brighter note, mandatory programs like Medicare and Medicaid generally persist, with payments to providers continuing, though administrative tasks could slow, and veterans' healthcare facilities stay open to deliver care, but routine checkups or elective procedures might reschedule. Railroad retirees, often overlooked, benefit from similar protections under their dedicated system, which draws from trust funds insulated from appropriations battles, ensuring annuities arrive on time. To prepare, it's wise to stock up on essentials without hoarding, verify automatic deposits for benefits, explore local community resources like food banks or utility aid programs that operate independently, and stay vigilant for official announcements from the Social Security Administration or VA, which typically issue guidance on their websites during such periods. Expanding on SNAP's security, the bill's full-year appropriation for agriculture not only covers food stamps but also supports rural development initiatives that indirectly bolster low-income areas, like loans for housing or community facilities, providing a broader safety net. However, if the shutdown extends, it could delay farm subsidies or inspections, trickling down to food prices and availability, which hits fixed-income households hardest. Politically, as midterm elections loom later this year, the incentive to avoid a pre-vote crisis is strong. Shutting down government mere months before ballots could spell disaster for incumbents, with polls showing public blame often split, but heavily favoring resolution over rhetoric, as seen in surveys from the last shutdown where approval ratings plummeted across parties. Lawmakers like Speaker Mike Johnson and Senate Leader Chuck Schumer have traded barbs, with Republicans touting their push for clean extensions free of poison pills and Democrats decrying cuts to social programs. But recent signals suggest a possible minibus approach to fund select agencies like the FDA or EPA separately, though opposition from key factions risks derailing that too. In the meantime, beneficiaries should maximize available aids. If you're eligible for energy assistance through LIHEEP, which helps with heating bills during winter, apply now before any potential disruptions. Similarly, housing vouchers under HUD might face voucher issuance halts, so secure current arrangements. And for prescription drugs, programs like Extra Help for Medicare Part D continue, but pharmacies could see reimbursement lags.
This year promises even more turbulence beyond funding. Think debates over Social Security solvency, with trust funds projected to deplete by the mid-2030s without reforms, potential COLA adjustments based on inflation data, and policy shifts on work requirements for benefits that could alter eligibility for millions. Amid all this, remember that while Washington dithers, community networks thrive. Connect with local senior centers, veterans groups, or disability advocacy organizations for support and information sharing. Hypothetically, if another lapse hits in the fall, SNAP could again be vulnerable without renewed protections, but that's far off, and election dynamics likely prevent it, as no party wants to court voter wrath by withholding aid right before polls open. Ultimately, your core lifelines, Social Security checks, SSI disbursements, disability payments, flow from dedicated funds untouched by shutdowns, offering stability even as peripheral services waver. To wrap this up with actionable steps, first, breathe easy knowing key protections are in place for now. Second, diversify your support by enrolling in all qualifying programs, from telecom discounts for low-income households to transportation aids. Third, keep informed through reliable sources, avoiding sensational headlines that amplify fear without facts. Fourth, delve into educational resources on benefits,